Hello, Gaston County. Welcome to episode number 155 of Gaston's Great, a podcast highlighting some of the great things happening in and around Gaston County. I'm your host, Stephen Long. We're coming to you once again from the worldwide headquarters of GSM Services right here in downtown Gastonia. And it is the first episode that Rachel Coward is in charge of. If you can't see her on camera, she's right here to my left. That's right. That's what I'm talking about. And before we finish, we'll kind of describe why that's the case. It's good and bad reasons. Okay. So we have another great guest today. I'm very happy to have Andrea Stevens on the podcast today, who is the president of the United Way of Gaston County and a proud Wolfpacker. However, that's only one of the reasons she is on today. If you want to hear more about the United Way and her experience there, please go back and listen to episode number 87. I'm really looking forward to hearing about her leadership and community journey. Andrea, it's great to have you on, and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Stephen. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be back. I don't know what that says about me. I'm back for the second time in, less than 3 years.
Well, the list was so short that, well, no.
Okay.
Listen, as I said before we started recording, there's lots of reasons, and we'll get into some of that while we're talking about. First, for maybe some listeners out there who don't know you or haven't listened to episode 87, I'd like to start with that classic question. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, anything you want to share, then we'll get into some leadership and community discussions.
Sure. Well, thanks again, Stephen, for having me. I'm excited to be here. Love what you're doing here with your podcast.
Well, thank you.
It's super exciting. But for those who don't really know much about me, I'm from a small town north of Raleigh, Franklinton. You heard of it?
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like a small town, what I would say, where everybody knows everybody or is related to someone. But it's a town that shaped and molded me. And I would say about 90% of my relatives still live there today.
Okay, that's cool.
So it's nice to go back home. So that's kind of where I'm from. I grew up. I found my way to Raleigh after high school and attended, as you mentioned, North Carolina State University. So
That's right.
Mighty and proud Wolfpacker. And I am a devoted wife, married to my husband, Tremaine. Shout out to Tremaine. And we have an amazing daughter, Ashlyn. So we have one child. And we chose to make Gaston County our home. And what I would say, in addition to that, about me, I'm a people person, extroverted. If you know anything about Myers-Briggs, I'm the ESFJ.
Okay.
Strong on the J side, but it's not because I'm a true judger. It's just that my job sometimes requires me to make judgment calls.
Right, yeah.
But that's just a little bit about me, who I am, small town girl that's ended up in Gaston County.
Okay. A couple things real quick. Isn't, and this is because I know you, don't you have an all-star volleyball player daughter?
Oh, my gosh, yes. So our daughter is a senior at Oglethorpe University in Georgia. And
she's a senior already?
She's a senior. So this time
She
next
just
year,
left, right?
she'll be a college graduate.
Wow.
That's really, and we're excited about that. She also plays volleyball, as you mentioned, for the university. She's a biology pre-med major, so she's deep into preparing for her medical exam that she will take in August. And she's open to the journey that God has for her, and we're excited about that. We feel that she has a good foundation and that she is putting God first in all that she does. It'll take her far in life.
And because I know you and your husband, as also is like most situations, she got her brains and her athletic ability from her mother.
Of course. I didn't mention I was a cheerleader in high school. Did I mention that?
No, you didn't. So listen, so what we're trying to accomplish here, Andrea, is just we're looking to have leaders in our community, people that are involved in the community, people who are leading organizations, people who have a interesting journey to get to where they are today. So just kind of maybe start, the exact question, and this isn't always the best way to word it, but what inspired you to get into your line of work? And maybe a better way to be, kind of what inspired you to get you to where you are today? Now, I know this is, right, the peak of your life is being on Gaston's Great podcast today, right?
Of course it is.
Not even a yeah, there's a sound effect that's making fun of me, which is fine. So yeah, just what inspired you? What brought you to where you are today? And then we'll maybe get into a few more details.
Well, I would tell you that I wish I had some major pretty story. It just evolved.
Sure. You know what? And that's how most things happen.
Right. One door opens and you walk through it, another door opens and you meet someone and an opportunity happens and you just kind of go with it. I tend to be a very structured person, and like most college graduates, you graduate from college and you want the dream job, and you're trying to determine what's next. So graduated from NC State, stayed in Raleigh for a while, was single, get engaged, get married, and shortly after that period of time, Tremaine and we had a child, and he took a job here in Gastonia, and we agreed that I would stay home with our daughter for a year or so, and we just kind of let things happen and let life be. But that first year was very important for both of us. So we moved to Gastonia. Basically, I think it was right at 20 years ago, because Ashlyn's almost 21, and I stayed home with her until her first birthday. And shortly thereafter, she started going to a Mother's Morning Out. Then that turned into a preschool full time, and I decided that, hey, it's time for me to do something. So I applied for a job with Gaston County Schools, and really not knowing anyone in Gaston County, just being a mom and a wife and just enjoying that aspect. But I felt like work gave me structure, and so I wanted to go back into the workforce. So my initial job was in September of, I think it was 2005, with Reese McGlowan, who was then the Deputy Superintendent of Administration for Gaston County Schools. And again, knowing no one, blindly taking this job. Yes, I had a degree in education, but still there's this learning curve where you have to learn. And I worked with Mr. McGlowan for 30 days. And what I did not know is that he was being vetted as the new superintendent for the district. And so 30 days later, the board announced that he was being appointed superintendent and that he had a few months to prepare for his superintendency, which would have been 2006 of April. And he asked me to stay on his team. And he said, we'll figure it out. And the structured person saying, okay, figure this out. What does this mean?
Yeah.
But that's essentially what happened for the next several years. We figured it out. He built his team. I began to learn about district leadership. And
that's how that's when you and I first met, is during your time. Matter of fact, I think it was still with Reeves before Jeff Booker took over. But anyway.
Yes, and so worked with him for, I think it was right at 8 years, and then he shared with me, and I'll never forget this moment. It was in fall of November. He said, I'm going to announce to the board tonight that I'm going to retire. And of course my heart sank, and he said, you will be fine. And that's the thing about leadership. He had become a mentor of mine and someone that I could trust and have open dialogue. And he said, you'll be fine. I felt confident that, okay, I'm going to be fine, regardless of who's in the seat, regardless what happens. And so as time went on, he retired, and then Dr. Booker became our superintendent, and then he asked me to stay on his team, and that was an honor, because when you take a seat as a leader, you get to build your own team. And here were two people who decided that they wanted me on their team. And so that let me believe, okay, they saw something in me that can help them as they lead the district. And so that's essentially what I did. I helped the superintendent behind the scenes and work with their team and lots of members of the board, as well as the public, our internal and our external customers. And we as a district, we really were a family. And I would say we are a family, because I still look at our district members as family members. And that is a good feeling when you work with someone for so long. You get to know their spouse, their children, you get to know their likes or dislikes. And that's what I believe in leadership. When you're building a culture, it becomes a family. You're spending more time with your associates sometimes than you are with your family. So that's kind of how that part of my career evolved. And 3 years ago, the United Way came knocking, and I would just say it was a God moment. I wasn't looking to make a change, but I had some conversations again with some mentors in my life, and they encouraged me that, hey, you can do this. You're equipped and you're capable. And I just took that leap of faith, and I leaped over to United Way, and I've enjoyed it ever since.
All right. So why is it that sometimes it takes others to point out what we're capable of? Because I feel the same way, especially when I was younger.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I know that's a general question, not just about your journey, but in general, I think I see that. Even here, I see people who don't realize what they can accomplish, themselves.
Well, I think sometimes when we look in the mirror, we see one thing, and then on the outside, other people see other things in us.
Right.
And I operate in the spirit of excellence, right? I'm not going to kid. I'm a perfectionist to a fault, and I'm working on that. I'm working on it. But I operate in a spirit of excellence. And so my goal is always to do the best job that I can do, right? And at the end of the day, when I've put forth my best effort with honesty and integrity, I feel like that's what I'm called to do. And I'm not doing it because I want someone to give me a pat on the back or to give me an award. I'm doing it because that's what I'm supposed to do. It's the right thing to do.
Right.
And in doing that, I think sometimes people see those gifts in us and they realize, wow, he or she could be doing more. They're capable of X, but we sometimes just don't see it in ourselves, right? It's just a difference.
Yeah, I think that that imposter syndrome concept is a real thing. Also, though, I think it's humility, though. I think the best leaders I've interacted with have that humility of, and that I think that drives people like you to want to learn more, and then, but you're not scared of taking that risk,
right?
Because I mean, frankly, if I was in your shoes, I'm assuming that going from that comfort level of being with the school system for long to making that jump to United Way, and it's possible I was on the board at the time, at United Way, when that occurred.
Yeah.
So I can assure you, we were thrilled with that decision and being involved with that. Looking back, yes, very happy that occurred. So I said, I just think that leadership journey is interesting, and to your point early on is how things just evolve, right? It's I think we graduate college or finish school, our schooling, and we think it's going to be the straight path, right? And it's just not. It never is. And you don't end up where this image when you graduate or finish school, you don't end up 20 years later, it's probably not where you thought you were going to be.
Right.
Maybe for some people, but I think for most it's not.
Yeah. Tremaine and I just recently had a high school graduate stop by. It's funny. We were like, are we becoming our parents? And really, she just graduated from high school with somebody that Ashland played volleyball with. And, she just wanted to talk. And what I realized was that she's uncertain. And that uncertainty right now is making her uncomfortable.
Right.
Because she checked the box. She graduated. She has a bachelor's degree in business. And the job's not there yet. And I told her, my advice was like, listen, to the 40-something-year-old who's closer to 50 than you probably believe, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. And it's okay to not know what's next. Just walk through the next door, take the job. You don't know who you're going to meet, network, and then the next door is going to open. And that's very uncomfortable for this college graduate right now.
Oh, sure.
So our goal is to, help her be encouraged. And we really all don't know what we're doing. We're just trying to figure it out. With integrity.
So, well, you're talking about that structured person. Well,
Yeah.
I do. Matter of fact, I think in my Myers-Briggs, I recently pulled all those things because I've done Strength Finders, Myers-Briggs, Colby, DISC. DISC is what we use here. And if you looked at mine, it is, I am the structured person, procedure, good pace, but not too much pace.
Right.
And so when we don't know, there's not clear path, I'm like, whoa, or that risk.
Yeah.
I'm not risk averse, but I want to have more information than I should.
Right.
Before I take that leap. And to your point about job, 32 years ago, when I graduated college, I was not going to be sitting here 32 years later at GSM. No way. Not going to happen.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Here we are, yeah. And it's been great. Looking back, it's easy to say that now, but it's been great. So how about, I know your time with the school system started getting you, it would have forced you probably, but I think it's also in your nature, you had to get involved in community stuff, right? I mean, the school system is almost like one of the foundational things of community. And then obviously I think that may have helped. And I'm projecting my own beliefs here, so you please correct me, but that may have led you to the United Way. But how does community play in with all this and on your journey? Because I've seen for the past, however long I've known you, going back to early days in the school system, I've seen all that and seen what you do. But so how did that play? How did that lead you maybe to I mean, you're leading an organization that, for me, is community.
Mm-hmm.
It's all it is.
Right,
is supporting the community and finding things to help the community, individuals, groups, So how did all that play in?
Well, in the school system, there were two things that were really important. Community was one, because our parents are in community, our students are in community, and public education has changed over the last 20 plus years. And so it was more than education for students. It was, what's going on in the home? How can the district help? And what I saw in most cases, if there was a home fire or if there was a death in the home, the district showed up to support family. They showed up to support their fellow colleagues, central office level. If there was a need, we always showed up for each other, and that's community. So you build community where you are, and that's a really good feeling when you can be a part of the community and know that your colleagues, that's a community that's there to support you, but then you can also go out and support your community by doing a penny war or a drive for clothing for a need. And I really was really attracted to that. And that's what we do at United Way. Growing up in a small town, that was my community. My family was my community. So did the folks who I went to school with and people who helped me along the way. That became part of my community. And the United Way, as you mentioned, is community, but we are community for the community. Right? And our team pours a lot into our Gaston County community, and we really want to have our pulse on where those greatest needs are. And I like to think of it this way: is that United Way is an organization that's providing support for people and families where they need it the most, when they need it the most, right? So it's the lady who left the office this morning who can't pay her rent.
Yeah.
It's the family who experienced a home fire and needs to be in an apartment or a hotel for a temporary basis until they're back on their feet. And that's what the United Way does. And I'm really attracted to that. And everything that I've done in my career, there's been some aspect of community, whether it's taking something for a family in need or supporting a colleague in need or being in the community at large. I don't know if that kind of answers your question, but
yeah, it does.
It's very attractive to me. And when I go home at night, if I've had a hand in helping someone, it's a good feeling.
Yeah, I guess another point from my perspective is that just because you were working in the school system, it doesn't mean that you had to make that important either, right? I mean, so I've seen firsthand what you have done and what you continue to do in the community. So again, I'm grateful for that, and that's one reason we wanted to have you on, right? Is to talk about those type of things. So, looking back, school system. You know what? Actually, not just the school system, not just your professional career, but just leading up to where now. There's something that you look back on, and you're most proud of. Maybe not just personally accomplishing, but something you've been involved with, something that stands out. That wow, that's the mission. That's why I'm here. Anything comes to mind?
Back in 2017, I think it was 2017, I participated in civic engagement leadership. Are you familiar?
Oh, yeah. Gaston Together group?
Yeah. And I was part of the inaugural group. Okay. And really, it was kind of presented as this is about leadership, right? It's about understanding what a leader is and how to be a leader in your community. But what it really, and I look back on this today, and I'm really at odd what I experienced. It was more about me as an individual and my leadership journey, what I'm capable of doing, and who I connect with, and how I connect with people, and how we can co-collaborate regardless of our discipline, regardless of our backgrounds. And that really helped me to see myself in a different light. And it kind of goes back to stepping into a leadership opportunity. Yeah. I don't know that I really felt or saw myself in that way before participating in CEL. And that was very beneficial. And some of us are still kind of connected today. That was very powerful.
Okay, so I'm going to, because I think what you just described is kind of how Nicole Burgess described it, because she did it a few years later after you did. But let me ask you, before doing that, was that something that you volunteered to do, or was it suggested to you? How did you end up doing that?
So it was suggested to me. It was. Leadership Gaston, those opportunities came and went, and I felt not a knock to Leadership Gaston,
No,
but I felt that I knew.
It's just different.
Yes. I'm like,
Yeah,
I
it's
knew
just
enough
different.
about Gaston. This seemed a little different. And so I put the time on my calendar and put the work in.
Yeah. So my point there is that's another example. Maybe somebody else seeing something in you, or and knowing a little bit about. Well, actually, that was the first cohort. So maybe we weren't sure what it was, but we knew what the concept was, because I was on the board of Gaston Garrett at the time, and I still am actually.
Okay, very good.
And so I'm very familiar with that program, and like for Nicole here, that might have been suggested to her too, right? Because somebody else that goes unnamed might have seen some things in her that she didn't see in herself as well. And now we're seeing that, and she's on your board.
Yes.
Right. So,
yes.
But my point is that's an example of, but you also had to accept it, and, and I'm sure it wasn't forced on you, right? You had to get out of your comfort zone a little bit to go do that.
And that's not easy.
No, it's not.
It's not easy. But I'm learning to be comfortable in uncomfortable environments. I'm really learning to do that, because that's when you begin to tap into your true self, and you begin to, learn a little bit more about yourself and grow a little bit. So and build your confidence. So shout out to Gaston Together. It's a great program. It was good for me, and again, I'm still connected to some of the folks in my cohort.
Yeah, we're good. So I'm glad to hear that, because it's still going on. Mm-hmm. There's a cohort going on right now. So, what's next for Andrea? I mean, what is something going on that gets you excited right now? Is it just continue doing more of what you're doing now?
Yeah.
Just kind of what's getting you excited and fired up about what's going on with you and our community?
Well, we have some wonderful things going on at United Way, and I really have to say that I'm excited about the work that we're doing for our senior citizens in Gaston County. We just wrapped up our second year of Senior Spring Clean.
Yeah, I saw that online.
And when I came on the United Way scene, we were serving like 100, 120 seniors, and now we're supporting like 560.
Oh, wow.
And I think that says a couple things. It says that there's a need, right? But it also says that we are connecting more with our community. So seniors are also finding the United Way as a resource, and we're really, really proud about that. So I would say what's next is to continue to expand that program and, show up for our seniors, amongst the other great things that we do at United Way. For me personally, I went to an event. Do you know Lisa Mercedea?
Yes.
Okay. So Lisa invited me to an event on International Women's Day, and I really didn't know what I was going to. And it was about women's health. It ended up being a social event at First United on women's health, and she invited our county medical director, who shared some insight on alternative medicine. Not to say she doesn't prescribe medication, but to tap into the other things that we are or are not doing as women, like exercise, eating healthy. But socialization was a huge one.
Oh, yeah.
And what I realized, Stephen, was that most of my socialization outside of family and work was very limited. I wasn't doing enough for myself. And so what's next for me is to lean more into finding some personal care for myself, and whether that's going out for a run, which I do enjoy running, spending time with some girlfriends on occasion, just kind of building that into my calendar so that I can create some balance. Yeah.
So the book I mentioned at the end of last week's episode when Corinda was on was The 5 Types of Wealth. And one of those is social wealth. And I was reminded reading that book about this, I don't know if you're familiar with this Harvard study on happiness that started back in, I think, 1938.
Yes.
And it's still ongoing.
Yes.
Which is interesting. But ultimately, there's a lot of stuff to take from it. But one of the biggest messages was social connections and relationships they determined as the number one factor when somebody's happiness and health in general over that long period of time. Mm-hmm. So it's those connections we make. And to your point, that's one reason I got involved with a group called F3. I didn't realize it at the time. That was the reason. I thought I was going to get in shape.
Yeah.
But the purpose of the organization is to bring men together to be better leaders. That's it. But what I've discovered is these connections to these other like-minded people from all different backgrounds, and a social connection that is separate from professional and separate from family.
Yes.
And I think we're learning more about that, especially coming out of COVID. I don't like to say that, we don't bring that up anymore around here, but we learn a lot, I think, from that, right? The devastation, that might be hyperbole, but just how bad that is when you're not connected with other people. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And, I think we just don't think about that, right? We don't think on those terms. We're just going about our day and doing our thing, and it's family, it's work, it's family, it's work. Hopefully maybe church.
Right.
Hopefully, but taking some time for yourself. What are you doing for yourself so you can be better for everybody else in your life? Correct. That's a hard concept. It can seem a little selfish sometimes.
Right. And social connections are important, and you feel better after like I have friends who play pickleball on Friday evenings, and it's just a random text, hey, who's in? And although I'm a structured person, I do kind of like to be organic from time to time, and if I can go, I go. And I feel better on Friday evenings. So yes, I'm working on my social connection. I really am. I hope, don't tell Tremaine, I hope I'm not working on it too much.
Tremaine, we'll talk about Tremaine here in a minute, but we'll get back to that. So is there anything I haven't asked that I should have asked? I mean, we got multiple more questions to finish, but is there anything else I haven't asked, something that you really wanted to make sure you get across on your journey, or any key factors that you can think of? I mean, we asked that one important question that we talked about before we started recording, before we finished. But anything else before we kind of start to land the plane here?
I think when I look back on my last 20 plus years, what I would say is that, my growing up was not easy. I have a very non-traditional background in terms of my mom being a single parent. And most people might look at me and think, wow, I can't believe that. I didn't know that about her, right? But that was not a hindrance to me taking the next step, to walking to the next door or going on to college and saying yes to some things and no to some things. And so I guess my advice would be to young people out there who are trying to figure it out, or adults trying to figure it out, is that, don't let your circumstances hinder your ability to dream a bigger dream, whatever that is. My mom would always tell us, whatever you do in life, be the best you can at that. And really what she was saying is, like, if you're going to be a custodian, be the best custodian you could ever be. Because to your point and what you've shared, someone may see something in your work, and you are worthy of being seen. So that's kind of my other thoughts is that, and I keep that with me, is just to be the best that you can.
Yeah, that's kind of, to me, that's almost like a life philosophy, Andrea. And it takes me back to this. I think there's this, oh gosh, my English is so bad. It's kind of this battle between what I call this world where when you're young, a lot of people, they're just telling you, go chase your passion, go chase your passion, go chase your passion. Well, I think there's something with that, but I've become a believer in take your passion to whatever you're doing. And that's what you just described, in my opinion, right? Because every interaction, every profession, every vocation is important and has the opportunity to make an impact. I remember when early on I got involved in the community, I remember sitting in church one day, and Jody Seymour was the minister at First United Methodist. And this, very rarely, I guess I have to admit, very rarely does a sermon just strike me. It should more often, but it just doesn't.
Yeah, it's all good.
But Jody, he was talking about, he wasn't using that frame, that words, bringing your passion, but he was basically saying, you're making an impact every day, whether you realize it or not. Do you want to be intentional about that impact? And he did it from the framework of, I'm the minister at this church, so I have an opportunity every day with all of our staff and our parishioners. And it struck me, gosh, every single day I'm walking into GSM, and at the time they were probably, 70, 80 people here. Now there's 250 plus.
Wow.
So I have an opportunity every single day that I didn't realize at the time.
Yeah.
250 families that I am impacting.
Right.
but I wasn't thinking about it. So I also realized that the culture and impact and how things go here and how things are viewed here starts at the top. And if I come in here with a bad attitude every day, guess what? It's going to infiltrate everybody.
Our board just starts at the top, right?
Don't need any words from the grandstands over here.
Our board, we just read The Energy Bus.
Oh, yeah. John Gordon?
Yeah.
Love John Gordon.
And
that's a great book, too.
Yes. And that's family, it's work, it's your social environment. The energy that you bring, it just ripples. And so, who wants to be around someone who has, bad energy, right? So bring your joy and show up. It's what we do. Okay.
Well, listen, I appreciate you sharing that. And again, I don't remember what episode it was, but I've shared that book as one of mine on one of our podcasts. But yeah, I'm a huge John Gordon fan. I would encourage you to go look him up online, and he's got a great podcast that I listen to weekly as well. So, a couple more questions, Andrea, then we'll let you get back to serving the community. You answered this question on your previous. This is the only question I'm going to repeat. But remember, this is a podcast about Gaston County. It's been a couple of years since you were on, so we'll go check and see if it's the same answer or not.
Oh, gosh.
From your perspective, why would you say Gaston County is such a great place?
Yeah. I do not recall how I answered this question before, but it's the people, without a doubt. It's people who make community. So if we have great people who are doing great things, then Gaston's going to be great. And over the last few years, I've seen the revitalization of downtown Gastonia. There are new people moving to our community all the time, and I think that says a lot about Gaston, that we are attracting new people into our community, not just people from Charlotte, but from all over who are relocating and finding their way to Gaston County. So without a doubt, I would say the people make Gaston great.
Yeah, I would agree. That's a common answer, and I've been fortunate to travel around. But I can't wait to get back home. I've never found some place that I say, hey, you know what, I think I want to move here. I just haven't found it. So kind of sticking on this leadership journey, community journey, just your life journey in general. Looking back, is there somebody who really, you look back, has made a huge impact on you, whether it was from a professional, a leadership, personal, just community perspective? Anybody that comes to mind? Because my experience is I've got some mentors that really helped me along the way. But anybody come to mind for that question?
Well, thank you for this question, Stephen. I've had some time to reflect on this just a little bit because I'm reading a book by Marian Wright Edelman called Lanterns.
Okay.
And she talks about the lanterns in her life. She's from South Carolina, and she's reflecting on, all the people in her little hometown who really impacted her life and has driven her, who've invested in not only her as a young child, but she very much believes in investing in young people. And so anyway, it allowed me to pause and think about, wow, who are those folks in my life? And I would say, without a doubt, my grandmother and my mom, for sure. My grandmother, she had 8 daughters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's legit.
Yeah. So I grew up around a lot of women, but what the beautiful part about my grandmother was, when we visited her house, there was always somebody there, community, right? Whether it be a relative or neighbor, a friend, a distant cousin, and she embraced everyone, and everyone loved her. So we shared our grandma with lots of people, relatives near and far, neighbors near and far. So by far, my grandmother, my mom, who I've already talked about, who really invested in us, to just be the best. So without a doubt, the two of them. But I would also shout out my husband, who encourages. He's very much an encourager, a motivator, and he encourages everybody to be great. And
he does. Yeah.
Kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Tremaine says, there's greatness in all of us, and regardless of what you're doing, just be great at that and lean into that greatness. So for sure him. But when I was in high school, I had a high school counselor, Dr. Sylvia Crudup, who is actually a distant cousin of mine, who she had left Franklinton, went to Raleigh, got her PhD, North Carolina State University, found her way back, and became our high school counselor, which I would say was just at the right time for me and lots of other young people. And when we were on our journey to figure out college and applications, SAT, she kept, us in the middle of the road and guided us on this journey. And when we didn't have the funds for a college application, she found a waiver. And she was very impactful in my life. And she is now deceased, but she wrote a book titled Inspired. And she co-authored this book with one of her colleagues. And several years before she passed away, she mailed me a copy of the book. And just 2 or 3 weeks ago, I opened the book and she had written a note that says, Andrea, you inspire many. Press forward. And Stephen, I'm the person.
And she's right.
Well, and I appreciate that. I really do. Thank you. She wrote that book back in 2010.
Okay. Wow.
I think I've received it maybe around 2015 is when she mailed me a copy. And I'm one who seeks to be inspired. And that's how I live my life every day.
Well, I think what you don't realize is when you're doing that, because I think that is part of our charge, is to, if you're looking to be inspired, I think what happens is you are able to inspire other people too, because you see those things. It makes you want to do more, right? I mean, I hang around people in the community. I went to the Salute to Business last week and saw a good friend of mine, longtime friend, Tim Eford, be recognized with the Spirit of the Carolinas Award. So I'm in that room looking around and said, these people they make me want to do more, right? Because I'm seeing what they're doing. I'm like, oh, got a lot to live up to.
Right.
But that's, hanging around you is the same thing. And I appreciate you what I'm thinking about. I appreciate you bringing up Tremaine, because I've got to know Tremaine over the years as well. And he's a terrific guy, and I've enjoyed getting to know him very much.
You.
If you don't know, he was an all-star football player at NC State. He played in the NFL. However, in Gaston County, he's known as Andrea's husband. In fact, I knew you before I got to know him. In fact, this just came to my mind. We were at a Next Generation event years ago.
Okay. Yep.
And I took a picture with you and Tremaine, and I think Janet took it. And I sent that picture to my college roommates.
Oh, wow.
And I put in, this is Andrea Stevens and her husband.
Oh, my God.
And, I'm sure there was like a pause that, to them. I say, and, they finally said, is that Tremaine?
Right.
I said, no, that's Andrea's husband. So I just remember that. But I do. You and Tremaine has a great business here in town as well, training, a lot of people to be better and healthier. So I'll give a shout out to him. But,
for sure.
But listen, this has really been good. I appreciate you sharing that, because I do think, if I look back, there's different people along the path of my path and journey that I didn't realize maybe were mentoring as much until later.
Right.
It's sometimes I wish I could go back and talk to some of those people, but some of them we can't.
Right.
But it's nice to hear, gosh, somebody sent you that book, and you'll be able to look at that every now and then. So, this has been really good, Andrea. Any last words, anything before we kind of close this episode out? Or where can people go to learn more about United Way, or even Tremaine's business, or anything that you want to share?
So I'll shout out a couple of things. Find a mentor if you don't have one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have several in my life who, take my phone call, my text. They'll listen to me vent, and they will celebrate, but they also will be very honest with me. And so I appreciate them for that, and they know who they are. So certainly I would encourage everyone to find a mentor. Find your community. If you're not a part of a community, and your church community, your work community, your social community, find your community. I think it really helps guide you in your leadership journey, and helps you connect with other people. And I think that's a beautiful thing, and do it with joy, and embrace that. Certainly, shout out to Tremaine, Athletic Development Systems, if you're looking to build your workout community, because I understand some people need to work out with other people.
Sure.
And Tremaine has a facility off of Lower Bethesda, road, and certainly that is a strong community, both for adults and young people. And I have to shout out United Way. We're doing some amazing things. We have a wonderful team. Visit our website at unitedwaygaston.org. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook. Reach out. I would love to share more about the great work that we do. I would love having coffee, lunch, and certainly if you're looking to just have some leadership talk, reach out. I'm happy to do it. So
listen,
thank you.
Absolutely. Well, you're welcome. And listen, and as I mentioned before we started recording, I'll cut it a little shorter than we were talking beforehand. But our community is better off because you were here, and Tremaine is here, your family's here, and our communities need leaders like yourself, doing good things in the community. So I appreciate that, and I'm grateful. And I'm grateful for our friendship over the years, and I've learned a lot from you. So I appreciate that. And I mean, you're a Wolfpacker, so
yeah.
I mean, you're a good person. That's by default.
Well, Stephen, I would say thank you. We, as Wolfpackers, we have to stick together.
That's right. You say that again.
But honestly, not being from Gaston and moving to a community where, Tremaine and I really didn't know anyone, this community has really embraced us, and we really want to say thank you for that. We want that for everyone on their journey. So thanks. I appreciate it.
Well, you're very welcome. Well, listen, I'm going to finish up with my own book recommendation. I typically do a podcast recommendation, a book recommendation, or maybe have a quote for the week. And we're going to record. We're recording this on Wednesday. What's today? The 28th of May. So it's Memorial Day week, and we're going to release it tomorrow. Correct? So yeah. Sorry, when you're hearing this, it's like I'm speaking in the past or future or something. That seems weird, but anyway, Memorial Day week is an important week for me, just because I believe so strongly in what that day means. And so my quote this week comes from Franklin D. Roosevelt, and I've got a couple books to share as well. And he said, "Those who have long enjoyed such privileges as we enjoy forget in time that men have died to win them." And so just that's something important to remember in Memorial Day, is the freedoms that we have and the luxuries we have they just didn't happen. And I'm going to recommend two my favorite books from the World War II era. And these are basically the two books that, if you've ever seen the miniseries on HBO called The Pacific, these are the two primary books it was based on. The first one is called With the Old Breed, written by Eugene Sledge, and the second is Helmet for My Pillow, written by Robert Leckie, which were two of the main characters in that series. But again, if you've never read any of that kind of stuff, I would encourage you to read those. Those are two of my favorites from that time. So, to our listeners out there, thanks so much for taking time to listen to today's episode. Please spread the word if you can about the podcast, and please don't hesitate to contact us here at our email address at podcast@gastonsgreat.com. We're always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests. You can find the podcast and subscribe at the website, gastonsgreat.com, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. And please follow us on all our social media platforms. And apparently, giving us a good rating, good 5-star rating, helps the podcast gets noticed. And thanks again to Andrea for being our guest today. Gaston's Great is produced and brought to you for the last time by Naomi Hunt from GSM Services. So Naomi is leaving us, but it has been a great journey, and I'm very grateful for her and her leadership and what she has done for our community and for our company and all of her coworkers. And occasionally she's been on camera, but she's not today. But she can maybe wave her hand and stick your hand out there. Hey, there's Naomi. And so we are grateful and for her, and we are happy and sad that she is leaving, but she is going on to better things for her, I'm sure, in my opinion. Maybe not for us. However, we do have Rachel Cowart is on the board today, and is going to be awesome going forward. We're going to put her on camera every week. Right, Rachel? And maybe next week we're going to have the team of Rachel and Rachel on the podcast. So, again, thank you very much, Naomi. We appreciate everything that you have done and continue to do. So, I'm your host, Stephen Long. Thanks again for hanging out with us. And please keep coming back to hear more reasons why Gaston's great.